Welcome to the July 2019 PowerAddicts Hangout. And today we have an exciting lineup of guests today. We have Neil, who's joining us from the UK, and Reza, who's joining us from Houston. And they have some really cool flow and power app recipes to share with us today. And we won't make you wait any longer. We'll dive straight into what the guests are here to show us. And following that, we will also talk about MBAS updates and announcements. And feel free to share your thoughts and feedback and comments. We want to hear it all. So Neil, I think he has a very cool custom connector he built to enable role-based security in his Power Apps. And that is what he's here to show us today. Neil, it's all yours now.
Great, thanks, Geetha. Hi, everybody. Let me start sharing and let me know when it comes through.
We can see it.
Great. So, yeah, hi, guys. So I'm Neil McLeod. I'm in Aberdeen, Scotland, and I work for BP. I'm a qualified management accountant, and since August last year, I've been building Power Apps. So
Did we lose him?
I was thinking we lost him, yeah. I thought it was me.
Yeah.
I thought I said yes.
Nope.
Well, we can speak screen share. I think we just lost his audio. Let's give him some time to bring that up.
Yeah.
And Neil was one of the presenters of the real world use cases at MBAS. He talked about his implementation that he worked on BP.
Okay. I guess, do we want to switch to Reza then and then see?
Yeah, I think we can do that.
And just one more thing, Anton, you probably had to kind of click on their tile because we are just seeing you on the video. You're maximized on the video.
I am? How about this?
Yeah. I mean,
oh, he went dark.
But anyways, just a heads up on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he should be presenting, but he's not there.
But that's okay, I guess. So Geetha,
Reza is the owner of the Houston Power Apps and Flow user group, and he's also an all-Flow star. He was awarded the Flow Community Award recently. And,
yeah, congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Congratulations on that. And he built a really cool user group event sign-in app. It's a composite app that covers Microsoft Forms, SharePoint, Power Apps, and Flow. So let's get started with that.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Reza Dorani, and as Geetha mentioned, I'm the founder and leader of the Houston Power Apps and Flow user group. And today I'm here on the PowerAddicts call to showcase the event sign-in application. This is an application we use almost frequently at our event. We use this application for users who come into our event, they sign into our event, and then we also use the same application for doing raffle prize giveaways. We also do things like feedback surveys from our user base who attend our conference and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to try and share my screen. I've actually come up with a short presentation first that I wanted to share. Let me know if my screen is visible.
Yep, you're all good.
All right. So just wanted to talk a little bit about the features of the event sign-in app prior to me doing a demo on this. So the reason why we built this application is, number one, we wanted to keep track of the attendees. So normally we have a lot of people sign up and we have a certain amount of people who show up for the conference. So we wanted to track and see who are the folks who don't show up. Additionally, we also wanted a historical record of all our events. So we are going to have our 7th session this month in July. So we have a historical record of all our events for the entire year, how many people attended, and all the other metrics around it. The third reason why we built this is because we wanted, this is a use case that came up almost every time during all of our sessions. Is attendees would send me an email asking me where are the session materials, where is the slide deck, do we have a link to the presentation material or any other artifacts that were shared by the presenters. So we actually use this application to send the link out to all our session attendees as well. We also have the same application send out an event survey to our attendees. This is something new that I recently added, so we haven't yet tested this. It uses Microsoft Forms Pro to actually send an anonymous survey out to the people who attended the session. And finally, the main reason why I built this is to drive our raffle prize drawings. So these are some of the features for the event sign-in application. Next up, what I wanted to talk about before I actually do the demo is the architecture behind this application. So I'm going to try and zoom in more if it's an issue. Can you guys see my, can this, is the screen viewable? Do I need to zoom in more? Everybody's silent.
That's pretty good for me.
It's good. Good.
All right. So on the left-hand side, as you can see, we have SharePoint for storing all the information. So I have a couple of libraries on SharePoint, one for storing the prizes, the raffle prize giveaways for our session. I also have a library called avatars, and the reason is that when the user signs in, we also ask them to take their picture, and sometimes they are not too comfortable sharing their personal pictures out there, so we have an option for them to pick an avatar. It's just a fun way of them having a face associated with their names. After that, we have a list called session history. This list basically tracks the entire history of all the sessions, the number of attendees, who was the presenter, who attended it, have we sent the link out, the sharing link out for all the presentation materials to our attendees, and so on and so forth. After that, we have an independent list for each session. So this tracks all the attendee list, the name of the session, who attended the session, their first name, their last name, and their email address. This list gets created for every session. And finally, I have another document library called session documents. And inside this document library, we have folders for each session. And within these folders is where I normally put the slide decks and any other supporting materials related to the session, and then we share the information out to the attendees. So this is from a SharePoint standpoint. This is how the information architecture looks like. It's pretty straightforward. There is a little bit of content types and site columns and all that good stuff in there. I'll get to it when I do the demo. On the right-hand side, we are using, obviously, PowerApps. PowerApps is the tool through which our users come in and sign in. Through the Power App itself, I can begin a new session, or I can continue a previous session if a session is already running. We do the raffle prize drawings, and finally, I complete the session within the Power App itself. From a business automation standpoint, we have Microsoft Flow, and I have two flows. One flow which gets triggered from the Power App itself. And what this flow does is it creates the record for the current session in the history list. So as you know, we have the history list where we are tracking the history of all my sessions. So the moment I complete my session or I start a new session, it updates the history list with the information. This flow also goes ahead and creates the new list wherein we track the attendee information. It also goes and creates the folder and the session documents and so forth. There is a second flow that gets triggered from a SharePoint list item, and that is from the session history list. And I will again demo this. But what this does basically is this flow, when called, goes ahead, reads the name of the attendees, goes to the session documents, creates a shareable link, and basically creates an anonymous link and sends an email out to all the attendees that, hey, here are the presentation materials for the last session. Also, it calls Microsoft Flow, which sends Microsoft Forms Pro, which sends a personalized survey to all the attendees for that session. So this basically is the information architecture around this application. I call this a composite application purely because I'm using a lot of the services around Office 365. I'm using SharePoint as my backend data source. I'm using PowerApps for my application development. I'm using Microsoft Flow for my business process automation. And I'm also using Microsoft Forms for sending out surveys to my user base. And that gets me to the demo. All right, so we'll have to switch my screen to my demo slide. Screen share, application window. Can you guys still see my screen?
No.
No? Okay.
Yeah, we see you.
That's good. All right, I'm going to share my screen.
Yes, you can see it now.
All right. So as you can see, this is the Power App for the Houston Power Platform user group sign-in. This application that I have built using Power Apps is actually something that I picked up from the community itself. Someone had posted this in the community forum probably a year ago. And I thought it was really cool. And I used this application and I extended it to meet the needs for my own user base. So a classic case of taking something from the community, modifying it to your needs, and then hopefully very soon I'll be giving this out to the community. So as you can see, when I log into the application, the first thing that the application did is it's telling me that there is already a session that is running. So this was the last session that we had, June 2019. I did not close the session. So it says the name of the session was How Do You Flow? And the presenter for the session was Geeta. And this actually isn't my dev tenant. This is not the actual tenant that I use for my user group. However, as you can see, I can either continue the last session. So I can hit continue and I can present this to my users to keep signing in. And normally what I do is I have an iPad out there wherein I open this app in this state and I hand it over to my users. And as the users walk in, what they will do is they will sign in. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to sign in. As you can see, I'm a big tennis fan. So all the names will be related to tennis players. Hit next. So the user comes in, and basically what the user is trying to do is he's trying to complete the login form. Now, one option for them is to take their picture if they want to add their picture to the portal. If not, they can switch over and pick from one of the cool avatars that we have put out. So in this case, the user signed in, he's picked an avatar. He can also pick his own picture if he likes. He keeps going ahead, and finally, he just agrees to the terms and conditions that he's going to contribute to our user group. Again, all of these things is just for fun. And finally, they hit done, and the user signs in. So this is a very simple form that has been built in Power Apps for the users to provide their first name, their last name, and their email address. There are some validations here wherein they have to fill all the required fields. So the users keep signing in. And once the signing process ends, at the end of the session is when I go in to do the raffle prize drawings. Before I do that, I just wanted to touch base on the back end, which is my SharePoint environment. And in this SharePoint site, as you can see, I'm going to just try and refresh this. So as you can see, I have a list called session, and I have a list called session history. So if I look at session, all the users who are currently signing in are getting logged into the session list, right? So I have these users who signed in. If I just signed in with the name Roger Federer, so the user is right here who just signed in. So as users keep
some stars in your user group.
That's a star-studded lineup, right? Okay, so as users sign in, they go into the session list. At the same time, because I created a session, immediately in the session history list, I will get an update which says, here's the name of the session, the presenter is Geeta, and so date was for the session. I just created this today, so the session date is today. And as you can see, the session is not completed, and obviously no document links have been shared. At the same time, if I go to my repository for the documents, which is called session documents, there would have been a folder created with the name of the session, which is right here. Now, if I head back to SharePoint again, you saw the avatars that were showing up in the Power App. They are coming from a picture library called avatars, wherein I have loaded all those avatar images for the user to pick from. Additionally, we also have raffle prize giveaways. So these were some of the prizes. I think these were the ones we gave out in June. So I just uploaded them right here. So we have the raffle prize giveaways. Again, this is a simple pitch library, which has some information around my image and the sort order in which I want to give the prizes away. Heading back to the Power App, once the session ends and once we have all the users signed in to this application, we have an admin-only screen, which has, of course, a secret code that only I know. And through this code, I have two options. Option number one is to do the raffle drawings. Option number two is to hit complete and just complete the session. First step, we'll go through the raffle drawings. So if I hit raffle drawings, what the screen does is it basically connects to the backend data source and fetches all the prizes that we are going to be giving away in the sort order specified. So the first prize that we were going to be giving away is Mastering Microsoft Teams ebook, or the actual physical copy. And if I hit generate winner, what this is going to do is there's a function, really cool function in Power Apps called shuffle. So what it is going to do is it is going to connect to the SharePoint data source at the back end, which is my session list. And it's going to shuffle the users randomly and pick a winner. So when I hit generate winner, and as you can see, the first winner is one of the users who had signed in. And this is the image that the user had picked when they had signed in. So that's the first prize giveaway. Then I hit next. And what happens is the next prize pops out. The first user who won, we remove him from the collection so he doesn't win again. And then again, we shuffle and we generate the following winner. I won. So we just keep going. And in this manner, we just do all our raffle drawings. So that way, there's no need to hand out any coupons or so and so forth. We have a cool Power App. Everybody who's signed in is in there. And all I need to do is, prior to the session, just add my raffle prizes in there. Just put the app out there and users can go and sign in and we can do the raffle drawings. So that's around the raffle prize giveaways. Thank you. The next part is I can either complete the session, and if I hit complete session, what's going to happen is this session would be completed, as you can see, and I can exit the application. Now, the moment I do this, what happens in the back end is there's a Microsoft flow that gets kicked off, and the responsibility of that flow is to do multiple things. Number one is to create a list called with the name of that session title. So as you can see, a new list got created right here called June 2019, How Do You Flow? And move all the items from the running list, which is the session list, into the past list that just got created. So now all my users have moved from the running list, which was the current session list, into the historical session list right here. So I have a list of all my users who signed in into that session. I also have other details like their email address. I don't store the images because certain users upload their personal images, which I don't want to store in the backend. So I don't store the images then. I only store their names and their email addresses, so I know who's come into my sessions and who has attended them. So that's right here. Also, at the same time, it cleans up the session list. So the session list is empty. That means when I log into my app again, it will force me to start a new event, a new session. At the same time, if I go over to the session history list, if you notice here, it has updated the item in the session history list. Now it has updated details like number of attendees. So I can see how many people have attended the event. I had 5 users who signed in, so I have 5 attendees in that event. I also have a link. All of these, I am using the column formatting samples in Office 365 and SharePoint to enable most of this. So when I click this, it just leads me to the SharePoint list, wherein the list which stores all the user information. Also, I have a link says share docs. Now, before I go to share docs, let's go to session documents. And as we all know that the folder already got pre-created. So let's say the session ended. I then reach out to Geeta. Geeta, hey, please share the session materials with me so I can share it with my user base. And once Geeta shares the session materials, All I need to do is upload my presentations into this folder. Once I have all my session materials into the respective session folder, all I need to do then as a user group admin or as the owner of this site is I can go back to session history. And as you can see, it tells me that I have not yet shared the presentation materials out with my users. I can hit share documents. And with this, what I'm trying to do here is I'm basically calling a Microsoft flow for this specific list item. I can also send a message out to all my attendees. So hi, thanks for, in fact, I believe I already put hi. So thanks for attending the June session. And I can hit send. And the moment I do this, what happens at the back end is it will actually go through the list of attendees who attended that session, create a shareable link of that specific folder wherein the documents for that session are stored, share that out with the users, and at the same time also send out a survey to all the users about the session through Microsoft Flow, and then utilizing Microsoft Forms for the survey. So let me try and see if I can log in with one of the user accounts that I used to sign in. I'm going to try and log in here. Let's see if this works. Sometimes it goes to my junk email. So here you go. The first thing, as you can see, I get this email which says, hi, thanks for attending the June session. So that was a message that I put in there. And then there is an anonymous link that got created. And if I click on this, this will directly take me to that specific session materials only. This has signed me in because I was already signed into the browser, but you got to trust me on that one. This is an anonymous link. Next one, so it's basically linked to all the session materials, which is great. And at the same time, there is also a link that goes out to all my users for the session survey. I use Forms Pro for this. So when they hit start survey, what happens on the survey is this is a personalized survey that goes out. As you can see, it says it has the title of the session, it has the presenter, and then all I want is for my users to go in and rate the session. So they can attend this, they can provide their feedback, hit submit, and that's it. So through this application, what I was able to achieve was I was able to have historical information of all my sessions. I can see the number of attendees of my session. I can share my session presentation materials. Also, at the same time, I can send a feedback survey out to all my users. Any questions around the app in general before I touch base on how the Power App was built and how do the flows look like?
This was amazing. I mean, this is like the best thing that you can build for a Power Apps and Flow user group, right?
True.
Yeah.
Well, this
so
built for a user group in mind, but this could be potentially used for any event-based application.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I thought about this because we do a lot of, when you go to a lot of SharePoint Saturdays, the biggest thing or the hardest thing to do is when you have to give out raffle information. You pull in tickets and people got tickets and they're losing tickets. So the raffle part really catches my eye. So I think that's amazing. That's really nice.
I think it's I've got one word to sum it up, and that's thorough. Like we can say it's amazing, we can say it's all those things, but man, that is one thorough app. That's every single box ticked, and the whole of the Moscow analysis and the rest of the Russia thrown in as well. That's fantastic.
Thank you. I'm assuming you guys can still see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so this is the app, right? We have the welcome screen wherein, as an admin, I decide whether I want to continue the previous session or create a new session. In this case, when I sign in, you see I'd already completed my previous session, so it knows about it. So the only option I have is to start a new session. Let's go ahead and start a new session just for the sake of it. I know I'm presenting on AI Builder in July, and presenter is Reza. I'm going to hit new session. So this is going to go ahead and start a new session. At the same time, this now is the visitor sign-in screen. I have the picture screen. I have the confirmation screen and all the other screens that you saw during the demo. certain things that I want to touch base on. I want to touch base on the easy parts. So components, I have used a couple of components in this app. I'm going to try and zoom in. The first component is a gallery which walks you through the sign-in process, complete form, taking the picture, confirming the picture, agreeing to terms and conditions. So this is a gallery, and I didn't want to keep creating this every time in all my screens. So the best case for reusing is creating components. I know components are still in preview, I believe. So not best practice to use in production environments yet, but since this is a sign-in application and using it for fun, I went ahead and used components for this purpose. And the second component that has been used is the header component that has been used throughout the app. So if you look at the welcome screen, you will see the use of the header component right here. If you look at the sign-in screen, you'll probably see both the components, which is the header component as well as the gallery component. And all of this is dynamic. It's coming from collections. It moves you from one screen to another. Uh, Additionally, another piece that I wanted to touch base on is the call for Microsoft Flow. So the moment I say I want to begin a new session, if you note right here, I'm actually calling a Microsoft Flow to start the session. And what this flow does is the Power Apps triggers Microsoft Flow. I pass in certain information, the name of the session, the presenter of the session, whether the session was complete or not. Obviously, it's no by default, and the content type that I'm using for storing my session details. The first thing I do in my flow is I check to see if there is a session that is already existing or not. So what I check to see is there any session in the session history that has not yet been completed? The next thing I do is I check to see whether it is completed or not. If not, then I go ahead and I create, basically it's a new session. So I need to go ahead and create a new item in my history list. So in this case, because I went ahead and I created a new session, if I go to my history list now, you will note that it has created a second item right here, and that's that Microsoft Flow doing it. It creates a new item with the title, the name of the presenter, and the session date. And this is the Microsoft Flow doing it right here. Next, what I also do is I'm using the REST API call for creating a specific folder utilizing Microsoft Flow. So we have the library for session folders in SharePoint or session documents. So if I go to this library, you will note there's a folder that got created called AI Builder July with the name of the session. And it is this step that is going ahead and creating that folder. So all of this is automated, the creation of the folder, the creation of the items, and so on and so forth. Also, when I actually go ahead and close the session, so I call this flow in two cases. When I also go ahead and close the session, and if I'm closing the session, then when I close the session, I need to do a lot of things. I need to create another list to maintain the session data. So this is the step to dynamically go and create a list in SharePoint using, again, the REST API endpoint and Microsoft Flow action. Next up, I apply the content type to my list. Next step is to get the name of my content type. After that, I need to go and fetch the list of all the attendees in my current running session list. So I get all the items from my session list. And then for each attendee, what I do is I create an item into the new list that I just created and remove the item from the existing running list. So when I complete the session, you would have noticed that all the user base from my current running list go into the session list. And this is the step that does it. And finally, when all this good stuff is completed, I update the attribute of completed to yes in my session history list. If I go to session history, this is the value that switches from no to yes once this is completed. So that's the Microsoft Flow that does it.
This is
And all, yes.
flow looks pretty, it might be simple at first glance, but then there's a lot going on in that flow, right?
There is a lot going on in the flow purely because I would say most of the actions are not yet available in Microsoft Flow. I know many things are becoming available slow and steadily. There are new actions coming in, but most of these actions, like creating items, I'm doing them dynamically. So I couldn't use the standard create item option in Microsoft Flow because you need to pick a list, and my list is being created on the fly in the flow. So that's the reason why I'm using the REST API endpoints in almost every case here.
This is really awesome. Thank you for taking the time to showcase all of this for us today. And looking at your components, I mean, I was reminded with Mariano's component. Mariano is with us here, uh, joining the attendees today, and he built a digital clock, and I think that would make a pretty good add-on for your raffle countdown.
Yes, that would be a great add-on. By the way, I use the SharePoint countdown timer as well, so that's my clock.
So that would be cool. Well, thanks, Raza. Thanks once
Thank
again.
you.
And Neil, welcome back. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I've been listening intently.
Okay, yep. I will not take any of your time anymore. It's all
What was the last thing I'd said?
Well, you just started your PowerPoint presentation. It was on the very first slide.
Right. Okay. Cool. Let's go back. All right. So I'm assuming I didn't even get past this front page then.
No. So, Sunil,
No.
I mean, you can just kind of give a quick overview of what you have, because some people joined in a bit late. So maybe just
Sure.
give a quick overview and then.
Yeah. So let's dive in. So in November, I was asked to build this proof of concept solution, and it was basically to replace a current Excel plus email process. So I built it in PowerApps using SharePoint lists as a repository, and quickly found myself in a pretty serious project with lots of sensitive and secret data. And this proof of concept using SharePoint and PowerApps seemed pretty weak on security. So we had two main issues. One was, how do I secure a SharePoint list when I need to give everyone involved contribute access? And how do I build a Power App that knows who you are, what group of people you belong to, and what data it should show you? So on point one, about SharePoint list security, we needed to give the end users contribute access. So that means they can view all the data on the list without any restriction. Now, the list URL is never shared with the end users, but they can discover it if they ever go to sharepoint.com. Now, rule level security in shared SharePoint lists isn't very easy. And as we don't want or need our users to see that data in that SharePoint list, I came up with this solution. So if I go to this next slide, so this is how I lock down my SharePoint list. So first of all, what I did was I created a custom permission level called contribute without editing views. Okay. Now that is just basically a duplicate of contribute, but with one key difference, right? And that is this item here. It's called manage personal views. Okay. So if you untick that, then any users that then have this permission level, they only see is what you see in the bottom right here in the screen, is that they get all items and that's it. Right? This format kind of view you can just ignore. And so us as admins, what we can do is say, right, you're going to see one item on this list. All right. So if I go to the next slide, this is what they see. They say you shouldn't be here. Okay, because I don't want them to come here. I want them to go to the Power App and see the data in the Power App. Okay. Now, for us as admins, we can have our own personal view. So we, like in my example here in bottom right, I called it alternative. So that's when I would click on that, and then I see all the data. Okay. So that's my SharePoint list lockdown. Okay. Next, Power App security. So the first thing we did was create a number of security-enabled distribution lists, or Azure Active Directory groups, as people like to refer them to as. And that helped us control who had access to the app, and we delegated the ownership of those distribution lists to the business. Now, I see Power App security as once you get the key to the door, the behavior of the app is the same for everyone. Okay, unless, as Shane Young describes in his latest video, you use some sort of user identification method to drive the app behavior. Okay, but in this case, in my SharePoint list, it's not for a single person to see. They're for groups of people, and groups within these groups can only see certain elements of even a single record. Right? Now that's tricky. Now, in my view, Power BI's got this kind of thing sussed using row-level security. So I wanted to apply the same row-level security principles that we have in Power BI. So that meant I needed to see how did that user get a key to the door, okay? Which distribution list are they a member of that granted them that access? Now, I found a blog post on the PowerAddicts community website by a guy called Siddhesh Suresh, and that was published on the 4th of December 2017. So you've probably not seen it amongst all the other content that's out there, but I've got a link that I'm showing you up here just now. And that talks about this thing called role-based security, right? As Geeta mentioned earlier, that's right up my street in this case, right? So at a high level, it was explaining you need to register an app in the Azure Active Directory, and you need to grant permission, and Azure Active Directory admin needs to do. You need to add the app as a custom connector in the Power Apps environment, and then you need to use the custom connector in your Power App. And I read this and I thought, you had me at step one. I was completely bamboozled by this. But for me, this is what makes our journey fun, learning new things, like Keith when he's speaking on Twitter about model-driven Power Apps, right? It's all this kind of stuff that makes this journey so fantastic. So it was up to me to go and build a custom connector because I got our IT friends to help us with the first two steps. And luckily in that blog post, what you'll find is that there's a Swagger file. I'll post this link at the end of the session. There's a Swagger file that you can import as an open API, and that puts all of your get logic into the API request. And so it ends up looking a bit like this, okay? Now, there's also some troubleshooting help in the blog if you ever so need it, but for me, it worked perfectly. I brought it into a test app, created a collection, and using that API, and I could see all my distribution lists with all the metadata attached to it. So I'm thinking this is brilliant, but there was something wrong. Some of my more recent distribution lists were missing. So I ran a count on the gallery and it stopped at 100. And it wasn't a cache thing, there was really only 100 records pulled. And I could see by the creation dates that I had only up to mid 2018. So that's a pretty big problem. And then it got worse. When I pulled in SharePoint as a connector, it came up with something about DLP policy. And I was like, oh my God, timeout, right? So when it came to the 100 record issue, it took us about 3 weeks to solve that. A lot of digging on Graph Explorer, reading MS Docs. I'm lucky enough to attend a Microsoft Ignite session in London and met this guy called Ben Summers, who's a top guy. And he passed the query on to Daryl Miller and finally Surab Madan. And I absolutely thank you to all those three guys. We tried so many different things, no avail, but in the end, basically we forced the API to list the top 999 records, and it worked. So then all I then needed to do was rewrite the Swagger file, which is in JSON, and I don't speak JSON. So there was 4 sites that I used to help me on this, and I'll post them at the end of the session, but I'll flash them up on the screen just now. And basically, the MS Docs and GitHub one, these middle two, I kind of use interchangeably. They each, in my view, had a part of the story. And the last one here helps you really test your Swagger file. So it was quite painful. I know when he speaks about writing JSON, it's very painful, but I feel I'm a bit more clued up on it. Just don't ask me any questions on it. And there was probably only about 7 lines of code that really actually solved it. So when I re-uploaded it, it then looked like this. So you'll see at the bottom of this slide, there's 2 key things here, the select and the top. So it's the top that is absolutely imperative, and that is the 999 records that's kind of driving that. So, and if anyone wants to get the Swagger file, then please message me on Twitter, and I'm happy to share that with you. So then that just left me with the DLP policy, so otherwise known as data loss prevention policy, something I'm now completely familiar to me and understand it quite a lot because I've had to spend a lot of time getting to know it. And I would absolutely encourage you to go and find out more about it, read about it on Microsoft's website. So I won't go into lots of detail about it, but I need to say thank you to Todd Baginski, and my lights are going out again on me here, and Brian Dan for helping point me in the direction of a blog post on the Flow community site by a guy called John Levesque, who I'm sure many of you know, and that was in January this year. And again, this is a link to that blog post. And this blog post basically explains how an admin can add your custom connector to a DLP policy using Flow or PowerShell. And as of last month, there was a bug in the flow template. PowerShell works, though after they updated their PowerShell version to 2.0.4. So if you check out this article, you'll actually find there's a comment at the bottom just to say exactly that by me. So I've written that just so people can get over that hurdle. And I need to say thank you to the Microsoft support team for helping our IT guys to get over this. And so that I can finally say it was a really happy day for me last month when we had everything in place and I could finally use my custom connector. And this is what it looks like on our custom connector screen. So you'll then what you'll actually see is that in my solution, right, that we spoke about at the beginning, that I needed this custom connector for, all we really then needed to use was a simple gallery, and we then had to brought in that collection with all the distribution lists, and I filtered the gallery on the distribution list that I'm interested in. Okay, so those Azure Active Directory groups that I'd created, and then on the SharePoint list that we see in the earlier slide, and if I jump to that, you'll see this is the SharePoint list that I use to help drive this role level security filtering. Okay, so I'm in here, I'm specifying the distribution list, I'm specifying its ID, and I'm also specifying which security group it belongs to and which region is visible. Okay, that's I'm going to come on to that in a second. So unfortunately, I can't actually show you the real app. So what I've done is I've built a little demo one so that you can see all the logic behind it. So let me jump to that just now. Right. So it's saying good evening, Neil McLeod, and welcome to PowerAddicts Access Check app. Okay. Now this is my on start run here. So I'm saying clear collect my groups, and graph, that's my data source, list user groups for user.email, which is what would be me, top 999 items, and we're done, right? You'll see if I go to my data sources, you'll see our custom connector in here. Here we go, here's our graph, okay? Now, then I want to show you this gallery here. So this is where I was mentioned before about filtering it on the distribution lists that you're interested in. So I'm just filtering this on distribution lists in this case, which have PowerAddicts in the display name, and then sorting it. And it's as simple as that. But then what we then need to do is for our icon, for our next arrow, okay, what we need to do is to tell the Power App where we need to go. Okay, because all this is about is going to the right screen in our Power App. So what I've done is I'm actually showing you a blocked text from my real app. Okay, so I'm doing a little switch here on the security groups that you see on that previous screen, and then navigating to various different screens within the app. And then we've also got, just to completely go to the next level, is we've even got one of the distribution lists. We'd end up, I've had 20 distribution lists for this item. And so what we did is we created one, put everybody on it, and then had like a dynamic role level security on it. So we had another SharePoint list that drove that one. So then they've got some show lists and various other things here to do that. And it worked pretty good. The last thing you'll see on here is this, we've got a little set variable as well. And that's really important because that lets me force these countries or regions into the screens in which they navigate to. Okay, there's no point in navigating to a specific screen if it's not if I can't like reuse it for other people. So to show you that, in this case, what I'm going to do is we see how we've got PowerAddicts Rock distribution list and we've got PowerAddicts Rock UK. So if I click on PowerAddicts Rock, you'll see it takes us to this screen, and then we've got a drop down which has got all these 6 countries on it. Okay. Now, if I go back to our welcome screen, and if we then click on PowerAddicts Rock UK, same screen, right? But the drop down now hard coded in UK. Okay, they can't change that, right? Then that means your gallery, which is filtered on this, will only show them those items, and that is our rule of security in place right there. Okay, right. So then I've done one extra little thing in here, and that is to show you just the power of this custom connector can do is that to help you show and search for your other team members So on our combo box here, and we've got Office 365 users, .search user, typical kind of thing you would use for this. And then on our search icon, just to show you that, then all I'm doing is just running that graph again, but on another collection, just by using whatever the person has selected in that combo box. Okay, so it's really simple. So let me show you it. So let's have a look at our team members then. So we've got Geetha, and we've got Keith, and we've got Vivek, Luis, and we've got Anton. And I'm going to click on Vivek, and then we're going to hit search, and it says that Vivek has got access to PowerAddicts Rock. He's got access to PowerAddicts Wife Cosmetics. Don't know what that's about. And we've also got, obviously, Shin Young Appreciation Society on here as well. And that's my showcase. So I'll hand you back to Geetha.
Hey Neil,
Awesome.
thank you. That was an amazing connector you just shared. You made it look so simple, but I'm sure there was a lot of work that went behind building that connector. And well, with the new MBAS announcements, the connectors are going to be open source. So if you are up for it, you could probably put your connector out there. So folks like us who would love to reuse stuff would just be immensely happy to
Yep.
reuse your connector, so we can download it to our organizations and just use it. Because your connector basically sends out those requests out of Graph and does all those primary services and actions that any organization would want to, especially if they have users in AD groups. And that's definitely something that we would love for you to share with us and the rest of the wider community if you can.
Yeah,
Yep.
you solved that. You solved that tricky thing that everybody kind of runs at the Power Platform and sees, and there's that expenses app. And every time I look at that, I think, yeah, that's a great expenses app, because if I find the address for that on SharePoint, I can just go and tweak my expenses after they've been approved. And that's a real big wide open hole there, and you've completely smashed that hole to pieces and filled it in, mate. Well done. It's spectacular. Spectacular.
Thank you.
So Vivek, do you want to talk about some cosmetics, mate? Because I know you've been like.
Should we start with some MPAS updates? Like just go around the table?
Yeah, I think it's about time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can talk about my wife's cosmetics as a part of it. Geetha, do you want to start with your one or two updates that you got really excited about?
Yeah, so I'll leave the AI builder to you. Talking about the cosmetics, there are several app maker updates coming to Flow and Power Apps. And Power Apps component framework is going to be released for Canvas apps too. So all those developers out there who want to get their hands dirty and build some controls and functionality that's not available out of the box can now do it for Canvas apps too. And the list can go on. I'm going to save them for the rest of the crew here.
Yeah. Keith?
I think for me, it's the number one ask has been fulfilled and then smashed out of the park, which is the external sharing. So they've spoken about sharing apps externally, and that's coming. We don't know what that looks like, but the portals, we're starting to get a bit of a glimpse of what that will look like. We think it's going to be a little bit like the Dynamics kind of thing, but the demos of the editor looked sweet. I mean, that was exactly what you expect a top level HTML editor from someone such as Wix, because we all know Wix because YouTube's ground it into our brain. That's exactly what we want. It's what we've all been asking for, and it's just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Neil, what did you like about MBAS? What were the one or two updates that you were really excited about?
Definitely the AI stuff for me, and it's trying to see from our business perspective how we could possibly use that in terms of reading forms and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, and also I want to hopefully maybe speak at some point in the future about Power BI and some of the stuff going on there. So there's loads of updates going on in Power BI that are really exciting also as well. Too much to mention.
Yeah. Anton?
So I think the biggest thing that kind of caught my eye was, which kind of covers a lot of stuff, but the release notes were amazing that they provided to us during MBAS. A lot of small stuff that I think we kind of overlook, but they're making them much better. So, for instance, in Flow, there's going to be some changes in gateways and like a portal to a certain degree. So that's really a big one. So I know that if you have people who want to work with gateways, you can get a gateway on the default environment and not on your newer environment. So that's going to be a fun one. And I think there was, I'm not for sure if it was in MBAS or was it something that we worked on, but I know a big one that's in preview now is for Flow drag and drop. So that's another big one that was a fun discovery. So
yeah, I think for me the flow thing isn't a lot of this isn't for me the functionality side of things. It's the interface and the UI tweaks to make my life easier building this stuff, and stuff like, you know, some of the announcements they made around the UI for Flow is just going to be really, really massive. Like, I am so sick to death of typing in common data service. You have any idea how many times a day I type in common data service? Like, I am a ninja when it comes to typing. It might as well be my password, you know?
Yeah. And it doesn't recognize CDS. If you type CDS, it doesn't recognize it. So
yeah, it's only a premium. I'm only paying for that sucker.
Yeah. Reza, what?
Yep. For me, I think it would be definitely Power Apps portals. That would probably be the number one thing for me, right? Building websites, that's going to be something really cool, and I'm very curious to see what sort of features are going to be available. I saw a couple of sessions around Power Apps portals for MBAS, and they looked very intriguing. They are going to replace the Dynamics portals, so exciting times. That's one. Second thing that interests me a lot would be obviously external sharing. That is, I know people are confusing portals with external sharing. External sharing, I mean external sharing for Canvas apps purely. I would be very excited to try external sharing for Canvas apps out. Additionally, there was another one, I believe, around test cases. You could write your own test cases within Power Apps, Canvas apps. So I think that will be another very interesting scenario wherein, especially around complex apps, that would be something really useful, and something that I would be very excited to try. AI Builder, everybody's trying that out. I know Vivek is trying that out. I'm actually presenting AI Builder at my user group next week, so everybody's excited about AI Builder.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. So I guess we have like a few minutes, so I'll try to cover AI Builder to just give you an overview to who hasn't heard about it yet. I'm guessing everyone has, but let me start sharing here for a second. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So the major announcement, I guess, around MBAS was the AI Builder. And within AI Builder, like, there are multiple options. They have started to build, like, for which you can build AI models. So binary classification and text classification is one thing which I guess not a lot of people have still explored, the ones who have made demo videos and stuff as well. The one which everybody was excited about was the object detection. I scanned my wife's cosmetics to detect what they are, because of course I don't know anything about it, and to be able to add it to an Amazon shopping cart and then order it. Shane made a video on it to detect his Chewy and the figurines, the different types of small toys, basically, and And April also made a video on it to detect swag, like different types of PowerAddicts badges and stuff. So there's a whole lot of videos already out there. If you haven't, just search for PowerApps AI Builder on YouTube, and you should be able to find a bunch of it. And I also have a video. I kind of go through each step by step on how to use the object detection. So the next one, next to the business card reader and the form processing, business card reader is like super simple right now. We had like Daniel, Christian, Michal, or Michael from Poland. They built business card scanner using Azure Cognitive Services. Like that was maybe a few months or a year back. But now using this, it's just like you insert the object and then can just detect all the fields inside it, and it does the job pretty well. But yeah, they'll keep improving it. So this is still in preview, by the way. And the form processing was another one which a lot of people got excited about, was because it could basically scan your invoices or any kind of receipts or something and detect the fields within it. Then basically you can almost create like an order, like scan invoices and build orders, send it to your whatever database you have. So it makes it much more easier. So I guess that's mostly around the AI Builder. I was just searching for PowerApps AI Builder and I was seeing a bunch of videos in it. So feel free to just Google it up, and there's a bunch of stuff online already. So play around with it. That's all from my side.
That's awesome, man. I think there's so much interest in AI Builder. It's kind of like it definitely stole the show at MBAS. It was pretty sensational. It does make me wonder where it leaves things like vision services and text analytics, though. There's a slight concern, not wanting to sully the cornflakes, as it were, that business will be distracted a little bit by AI and what it can do. When I think there's a huge amount to be done with forms over data still. And you could see from Neil's work and you could see from Reza's work today that there's a whole bunch of workarounds that they're doing just to create a folder in SharePoint, for God's sakes. That should be out of the box. Right. So I think that, yeah, right, it's awesome. AI Builder is absolutely incredible. I've done the binary classification Titanic demo. I suggest you go and look at a couple of the data sets that you can get from places and muck around with that, because I think there's a bit to go with binary classification. But it does worry me that people are going to go, all right, now we all have to do AI, where actually there's still a load of apps that we still have to build.
I think that kind of piggyback on that. I think October is going to be a really, really big month for the platform. If you read the release notes or the wave, you're going to see a lot of information is going to come out. And a lot of stuff is going to come out to us. It's not going to be in preview. It's coming straight GA. So October is going to be a big month. We're getting small subs here and there, but October is going to be a month of complete overload.
I think the big one when it goes GA will be components. I think that'll be massive when it goes GA. Yeah, for sure. But I think the one question I do have that's sort of like outstanding and I haven't managed to get an answer is, if we've got Power Platform portals, where does that leave Forms Pro when it's hooked up to the CDS? Surely is that the same thing, or is that a different thing? I mean, I know Forms Pro is a preview thing. I know it's not GA, so don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and watch.
Look, we'll find out.
Yeah.
I think Forms Pro goes GA by the end of this month. And there is a license for it, though. It's an additional license.
Yeah. So what does that even...
Included in your P2.
All right, I guess we are on the top of the hour. So thank you, Reza. Thank you, Neil, for joining us and showcasing your demos. Really appreciate your time and showcasing your stuff. It was really something. I mean, a lot of people will benefit from it, and this video will be available after this on demand as well. So thank you, everyone else as well, for joining. Thank you, Keith, Anton, Geeta. As always, your presence is always appreciated. And thank you for all the audience. I mean, we had a lot of chat around today, so thank you for watching us. And we'll see you guys next month, same time, Tuesdays, every second Tuesday or Tuesday of the month. We'll meet you guys and we'll showcase some more amazing stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.